When I was younger, I thought success had a finish line. I thought there would come a day when all the hard work finally paid off. The career would be established, the mortgage would be manageable, the family would be settled. Life would somehow become easier. And for a while, that's exactly what I chased. Like many people, I spent my 20s building skills, building a reputation, building income, building a future. Every promotion felt like progress. Every pay rise felt like movement. Every goal achieved felt like another step toward freedom. But life has a funny way of teaching lessons that nobody talks about, because one day you wake up and realize that success doesn't remove responsibility. It multiplies it. The house needs maintenance. The family needs support. The business needs attention. Your health needs protecting. Your parents are getting older. Your children are growing up. And suddenly, life isn't about arriving anymore. It's about carrying. Carrying everything you've spent years building. I don't say this as someone who has all the answers. I say this as someone who's lived it, someone who spent decades building a life, only to discover that success feels very different from what I imagined. Because success wasn't the destination. It was simply the beginning of a different journey. Nobody prepared me for the maintenance phase. We spend years learning how to build. Nobody teaches us how to maintain. Nobody teaches us how to sustain. Nobody teaches us how to carry success once it arrives. When you're younger, growth feels exciting. Everything is new. Every year brings more opportunity, more possibility, more momentum. But eventually life changes. The excitement of building becomes the responsibility of maintaining. You maintain relationships. You maintain your home. You maintain your career. You maintain your health. You maintain your finances. And much of this work is invisible. Nobody congratulates you for paying the insurance. Nobody celebrates the bills being paid. Nobody applauds the difficult conversations. But these small actions become the foundation of a stable life. The challenge is that maintenance can feel repetitive. It can feel heavy. It can feel endless. And sometimes we mistake that feeling for failure, when in reality, it's simply adulthood. It's life asking us to become custodians of what we've built. One of the biggest lessons I have learned is that every blessing arrives carrying responsibility. The house comes with repairs, the career comes with pressure, the business comes with risk, the family comes with sacrifice. And yet, we still want all of those things. Why? Because responsibility gives life meaning. When I look back over my own life, the moments that shaped me weren't the easy ones. They were the moments when people depended on me, when my children needed me, when my team needed leadership, when difficult decisions had to be made. Responsibility is heavy, but responsibility is also where purpose lives. The challenge isn't removing responsibility. The challenge is learning how to carry it without losing yourself. That's a lesson I'm still learning every day. From the outside, people see outcomes. They see the house, the job title, the family photos, the achievements. What they don't see is the invisible work, the conversations, the planning, the stress, the sacrifices, the late nights, the decisions nobody else wanted to make. The truth is that much of adult life happens behind the scenes. The strongest people I know aren't necessarily the most successful. They're the ones quietly carrying responsibilities nobody else notices. They're solving problems before they become crises. They're showing up even when they're tired. They're keeping things together when life feels uncertain. That's the invisible work, and it deserves more respect than it gets. At some point in life, the game changes. You stop building and you start defending. When you're young, life is offensive. You're chasing opportunities, taking risks, trying new things, building momentum. But in your 40s and 50s, life becomes different. Now you're protecting your family, protecting your finances, protecting your health, protecting your future. And defending requires a completely different mindset. It requires patience, discipline, consistency, wisdom. You realize that not every battle is worth fighting. Not every opportunity is worth pursuing. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply preserve what matters most. There comes a point where you realize the weight you're carrying isn't failure, it's responsibility. For years, I thought feeling tired meant something was wrong. Maybe I wasn't managing my time well enough. Maybe I wasn't organized enough. Maybe I wasn't working hard enough. But eventually I realized something. The weight wasn't coming from failure. The weight was coming from success. The people who depend on you, the commitments you've made, the promises you've kept, the life you've built. Every responsibility adds a little weight: a mortgage, children, employees, family, clients, friends, parents getting older. Life doesn't become heavier because you're doing badly. Life often becomes heavier because you're doing well, because people trust you, because people depend on you, because you've become someone others can lean on. And while that's a privilege, it can also be exhausting. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply acknowledge the weight you're carrying, not to complain, not to feel sorry for yourself, but to recognize that carrying responsibility takes energy, and maybe you're doing better than you think. One of the strangest discoveries of adulthood is that pressure and purpose often arrive together. The things that create the most stress in our lives are often the things we care about most. Family creates pressure, but family also creates meaning. Work creates pressure, but work can also create purpose. Responsibility creates pressure, but responsibility can create significance. The challenge isn't eliminating pressure. The challenge is making sure the pressure is attached to something worthwhile. I've noticed that the moments that stretched me the most often became the moments that shaped me the most. The difficult conversations, the hard decisions, the uncertain seasons. At the time, they felt overwhelming. Looking back, they became defining moments. Pressure is not always a sign you're on the wrong path. Sometimes pressure is evidence that you're carrying something valuable. The question isn't whether life will be difficult. The question is whether the difficulty is connected to something meaningful. Because meaningful burdens are easier to carry than meaningless ones. And purpose has a remarkable ability to make heavy things feel lighter. When we're young, we ask ourselves one question: can I achieve success? But as we grow older, life quietly changes the question. Now the question becomes, can I carry success? Can I carry responsibility? Can I carry uncertainty? Can I carry disappointment? Can I carry change? Because success isn't static. Life keeps moving. Relationships evolve. Children grow. Careers change. Businesses rise and fall. Markets shift. Dreams evolve. What worked 10 years ago might not work today. And the people who navigate life well are rarely the smartest. They're rarely the richest. They're usually the most adaptable. They learn how to carry change without losing themselves. They learn how to stay grounded during uncertainty. They learn how to keep moving even when the path ahead isn't completely clear. Life isn't asking us to be perfect. It's asking us to keep showing up. And perhaps that's what maturity really is. Learning how to carry success without letting success carry you. For most of my life, I thought peace came from control. If I could just solve enough problems, earn enough money, plan carefully enough, work hard enough, then eventually I'd arrive at peace. But life taught me something different. Peace doesn't come from control. Peace comes from acceptance. Acceptance that some problems will always exist. Acceptance that uncertainty is part of life. Acceptance that not everything can be fixed immediately. Acceptance that some seasons are simply harder than others. The calmest people I know aren't carrying less, they're simply fighting fewer battles. They've learned what matters, they've learned what doesn't, they've learned where to invest their energy and where to let go. Acceptance isn't giving up. Acceptance is wisdom. It's understanding that peace is not found when life becomes perfect. Peace is found when we stop demanding perfection from life. And in that acceptance, something remarkable happens. The pressure begins to soften. The noise becomes quieter, and we finally have room to breathe again. If life feels heavier than you expected right now, you're not alone. In fact, you're probably standing exactly where millions of other people stand, looking around at a life you've worked incredibly hard to build, and wondering why it feels so demanding. Maybe the answer is simpler than we think. Maybe success was never supposed to remove responsibility. Maybe success simply changes the responsibilities we carry. Maybe freedom isn't the absence of obligations. Maybe freedom is having obligations that matter. The people you love, the work you care about, the life you've created, the future you're trying to protect. Looking back, I've realized that some of the hardest seasons of my life taught me the most valuable lessons. They taught me resilience, perspective, patience, faith, and gratitude. Not because those seasons were easy, but because they forced me to grow. So if you're carrying a lot right now, I want you to remember something. The weight you're feeling may not be evidence that you're failing. It may be evidence that you're carrying something worth protecting. Success isn't always about arriving. Sometimes success is learning how to carry what you've built and carry it well. So I'd love to ask you a question. Does success feel more like freedom or maintenance? Let me know in the comments, because I think we're all trying to figure that out together.